friends. Welcome back. Today, we are going to chat with my friend Ginny Yurich. Ginny is the founder of the wildly popular 1,000 Hours Outside platform that is changing the way families live and grow. Her mission is to help these families match screen time with green time, enjoying the simplicity and beauty of being outside. She is an author, entrepreneur, wife, and mama that loves being in nature. Welcome, Ginny. We are so thrilled to chat with you today.
Oh, I am so honored to be here. It was so fun to connect through your new book that came out earlier this year. And I love Grace Filled Homestead. And I love everything that you do. And I think that writing books is hard and scary, but you never really know the connections that are going to come out of it. And so this is definitely a special one for me. Happy to be here.
Yes, we're so glad. And you are one of my favorite people online in the whole,
Oh,
in the whole online arena. I just
aw.
love your
That's
authentic.
amazing because I don't even have cute goat pictures.
But you know what? I will say your message is, I
Hmm.
mean, I feel like we kind of have the same message in, in different arenas a little bit, but
Right.
it's just so important and it's on both of our hearts.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you've come. I'm so super excited. So, for those of you that don't know, Jenny has a book coming out here soon. And I'll tell you what, I mean, we all talk a lot about books, and authors come on both of our podcasts all the time. This is an extra special book. I ordered an extra one
Mm.
for my daughter-in-law because I have a grandbaby, and the message that you have coming out for this next generation is so important. So let's go ahead and dive in. Where did you get the idea for 1,000 hours outside? Where did it come from? And why is this commitment so important to you?
Well, it came from failure. Do you have any of those stories?
Oh,
Feel-
I've had plenty of those.
Most of my stories actually are birthed out of failure. I thought I was going to be this incredible mom when when I was pregnant, and I had all these grandiose plans of schedules and how we were going to orchestrate our time and our days, and it was just a total mess from the very beginning, and I was not good at it. And our oldest was probably kind of crabby, and he didn't ever want to sleep and all of those types of things. So I had this idea in my mind of how life was going to be as a young mom, and it looked nothing like that. And so I struggled from day one,
Mhm.
just a really, really hard time with that adjustment. And some people do, and I think some people don't. Some people seem to be more natural at it, and I was not one of those.
Mhm.
And then, amazingly, 15 months later, we had another one. So, they talk about all that like nursing at night and you can't get pregnant. Well, apparently that's not true. So we learned. So 15 months, we had another one. And then we were kind of like in the throes of it. So 17 months later, we had one more. And so I had these three kids under three, and I'd always wanted to be a mom, but my days were really dark. I felt like I was failing constantly because I couldn't meet all the needs, and it never ended. And so they were these kids that were so precious, but they were so hard at the same time. And I had family that was willing to help, but the babies just wanted to be with me.
Mhm.
So it was just a really hard time. And it all changed in one day, Lana. One day.
Wow.
This
Okay. I
friend
have
of
not heard
mine,
that. That's
one day,
awesome.
this friend of mine, I was enrolled in all these programs. That's kind of like what everyone else was doing. So that's what I thought I would do. Like the swim class and the library and the music and moms and the tots and this and all these things. And we did mops.
Yeah.
And they were pretty awful, to try and finagle all the kids there. They didn't really want to be there. I'm trying to get this one in the pool and hold on to this one who wants to go in the pool, but it's not that one's time. And it was just exhausting. And I remember thinking so often it would be like 11 in the morning, and I would think, I am done for the day.
Yes.
But you
Okay.
can't, my husband's not coming home for 7 more hours. So it's just a hard time. And I was wanting so badly to enjoy it. And
Mhm.
I was kind of just wishing it away. So this friend of mine from MOPS, she told me about this educator, this British educator, who turned out to be from the 1800s, but she didn't tell me that she was from the 1800s. At that time, she just said, this Charlotte Mason lady says that kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours a day
Mhm.
whenever the weather is tolerable. And Lana, I thought that was the strangest thing I had ever heard. I,
Mhm.
I never saw kids out. I mean, all the kids' activities are 45 minutes, 30 minutes, or you get them into Play-Doh and they play with it for 20 minutes, then you're sweeping up the floor for 25 minutes when it's done. that's sort of how all the kids' activities were. So I thought it was weird in my head. I didn't say anything. Well, then she asked us to do it. I was like, oh man, this is not going to go well.
Another
And
thing to my calendar, right?
what are the kids going to do for 4 to 6 hours? But you're trying to have friendships too. I think that's another really important thing as young moms to have that community. So I said yes. And so she had 3 little kids and I had 3 little kids. And we met up at this park. It was in the fall of 2011 in Michigan. So it's beautiful in the fall here. And we met up at this park and it was not a play structure, Lana. There was nothing to do.
Mhm.
Grass, there's a little creek, a shallow creek bed with rocks and some ducks, trees. I thought, oh, this is going to crash and burn. We don't have toys. We don't have anything. We brought food and a blanket. And it turned out to be, I say it was the best day of my life because it was the first good day I had as a mom. We
Wow.
met at 9 in the morning and had planned to stay till 1 in the afternoon, and the kids just played. And it was the first time that I could catch my breath. We each had babies that we were holding and nursing, and they would sleep and lay on the picnic blanket, and I could have conversation. The kids were happy, and I felt like we were all taken care of in that moment. And we left refreshed, we left rejuvenated. The kids fell asleep on the way home, a miracle, all at the same time. We drove around for a while because they were sleeping. Gas was cheaper then. And so then all of a sudden it's 3, 4 o'clock, and I'm closer to that sort of time period where my husband's getting home from work. So it really started on that day in the fall of 2011 when my whole life changed with that one 4 hour chunk of time outside. But then since then, we just completely changed our lifestyle because I needed to get my sort of mental sanity back. I thought, well, I'm doing this for me because if I'm more present as a mom, if
Mhm.
I feel better emotionally,
Mhm.
then everything will be better in our family. But then what I learned very quickly is all of this outside time, it's so good for kids. I
Right.
mean, it helps their cognition, I think, in ways we don't even know. All those connections that they're making with the sensory experiences and the movements that they're doing. So it's helping their brains function better and quicker, and it's helping them physically with their eyesight, and they're not getting sick as much, and they're sleeping better. It's helping them emotionally, it's helping me emotionally. It's helping in all of these different realms socially. I mean, their social skills, that's a huge environment to work on your social skills because you're having to negotiate and imagine and come up with things out of nothing, out of these raw materials that don't look like anything. So my journey has been this one of learning the immense benefits of simply stepping out the door.
Mhm.
And I called it 1,000 hours outside. I started the movement about 2 years after we were spending all this time outside. And
Mhm.
I called it that because I had seen a statistic that kids are only outside for 4 to 7 minutes a day playing creatively, 4 to 7 minutes, but they are on their screens for 4 to 7 hours. And it prompted me to add up how much time we were getting outside. So we were with this little nature group, these couple families. We were trying to get together 4 to 6 hours a day, three
Mhm.
to four days a week. It was about 18 to 20 hours a week, more in the summer, less in the winter, where we're at.
Right.
But an average of that. So it ended up being 1,200 hours a year, which at that time, it was in 2013, is 10 years ago. At that time, that was the exact amount of time kids were on screens, 1,200 hours a year on
Wow.
average. And I just thought, because we're not anti-screen, but I just thought, how different would our life have looked had all of that time gone to screens instead of to all the memories and experiences that we had? So I call it 1,000 hours outside because it's a little catchier than
Mhm.
1,200 hours outside. But the premise is to fill our lives with what we want to fill it with first and leave the leftover time for screens, not the other way around, and to bring back balance to childhood and to our own adult lives
Mhm.
between the real and the virtual.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love this concept. And I just can't think of something more important right now in raising children. I mean, Jesus and outside. That's
Mhm.
all you
And you
need.
can find Jesus outside.
You
I
can
think
find
too,
Jesus
I think for people that are looking for that God's creation mirrors his spiritual principles, and it mirrors a lot of life principles. So if you look at growth in your garden, we don't go out there and measure our flowers every day, do we, Lana?
No,
And
we
we don't take a
don't.
ruler out there. We're not looking at the metrics. We're looking to see overall how well are they doing. We're helping a little bit, but they grow on their own and they bloom at their own time. All of these different things, I think, that help us to slow down and calm down and give us a glimpse into how we're supposed to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. So you've written that if you want your child to thrive academically, socially, emotionally, and physically, you have to build time into your life to spend outdoors. I think a lot of us can see the social, emotional, and physical connection, but tell me more about that academic. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so this is a big one, right? We want our kids to be honor roll students so we can have the bumper sticker.
Right.
And I think that when most people think about learning, they don't think at all about outside. They think about classroom, they think about desk, chalkboard, teacher, test, all of these different things.
Mhm.
Well, the pediatric occupational therapists who
Mhm.
are working with kids, they're on the front line, seeing this rapid decline in skills. And they're the ones who are saying, look, you got to get your kids outside and you have to get them moving. So there's two books that I recommend that are phenomenal about this topic. One is called Balanced and Barefoot by
Okay.
a pediatric occupational therapist. Her name is Angela Hanscom. And then the other one is by Dr. Carla Hannaford. She has a book called Smart Moves: Why Learning is Not All in Your Head. So in Smart Moves, I'm going to give one statistic.
Yeah.
In Smart Moves, Dr. Hannaford gives a statistic that elderly people who dance regularly have a 76% less chance of developing Alzheimer's or dementia. If they dance regularly, a 76% less chance. Like, well, that's huge, right? Then I
Yeah.
mean, 76%. Like, people be popping that pill if that were available, right? So,
Right.
so what's going on there? Well, what she's saying is that when we engage in complex movements and increasingly complex movements, like learning a dance routine, our brain's wiring is bzz, 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 it's
Right.
buzzing, and that myelin is building up. She goes through all the scientific information behind the synaptic nerves, and it's all these things are firing and they're making these stronger connections, and our brains start working better. They start working faster. They start connecting all of these different things that maybe they wouldn't have before. And so you have this like thick neural network basically that comes from complex movements, and it comes from sensory experiences. And so if you look at what do kids do, and you've got kids that are neurotypical, you've got kids all different ranges, but what do they do in their own way when they have the time and the space to do it? Well, their bodies push them on. Their
Mhm.
bodies push them on to the next thing. And there's a little boy that follows 1,000 Hours Outside. His parents have done it. He was in a walker. They're kind of showing his progression. He's increasingly complex movements. Now he's trying to walk on his own and do these different things. Or you have children that, they're going to try and ride their bike. And
Mhm.
then they're going to try and take their hands off the handlebars. And then they're going to try and pull one leg. This is what our bodies drive us to do. And we don't give kids enough time to do it. That's what's happening. But
Mhm.
when we do give them, then they're learning how to climb the fence. They're learning how to climb a tree. They're learning how to cast a fishing pole. All of these things are complex movements. And as they go through their teen years and into their adult years, they might start to specialize. Like our 13-year-old asked for a skateboard this year. That's what she wanted for her birthday. So that's a complex movement, right? She's moving into these other realms where her body is pushing her on, and that's helping academically. And there's so much more than that. Like even all the movements, like the hanging, the kids are going to hang, and that's going to help their shoulder girdle all
Mhm.
the way down to their finger grasp and their wrists so that they can have a good writing position. Kids are falling out of their desks at school because they don't have the core strength to sit up, and they're having to use all their concentration to work on their core strength, or they're not getting that tactile. You talk about gardening, right? We got our kids in the dirt and they have all these tactile experiences so they can use their fingers, and they learn how much force, so they know when they hold a baby chick not
Mhm.
to crush it.
Right.
All of these different things they're learning through their bodies, through their senses. And we have this what's called the vestibular sense, which
Mhm.
is the first sense. It starts in utero at 5 months. And it's about learning where your body is in space. And what they say is it's a foundational sense. If your vestibular sense is off, you're going to have a hard time getting the input from all of your other senses, your smell, your taste. Well, the vestibular sense, this is the coolest thing. You turn it on, you get it working by getting your head out of an upright position. Getting your head out of an upright position. Well, it's
Interesting.
like, well, what do kids do when they have the time and space to do it? I mean, they do all of that. They roll, they
Oh,
cartwheel, they throw
true.
their head back, they swing, they get on the merry-go-round. They're doing all of those things because that's turning their brain on and working on that vestibular sense. And what's happening is it's called endolymph fluid, but all the fluid in their ears, it's like moving the hairs in there, and that's how they figure out where they are in space. And then when you hit adolescence, the
Uh-huh.
fluid thickens. That fluid gets thicker. And so you get motion sick because it takes a lot longer for those hairs to kind of prong back up to their original spot. So childhood is meant for this type of movement of rolling down the hill and all the things that kids, I remember as a kid swinging upside down on the monkey bars. You put your legs and you hook them and you go
Yep.
back. This is what kids do. I remember sitting in class and tipping my chair back. Well, this
Mhm.
is what kids are doing in order to like activate their brain. And so childhood today is so much not that.
Mhm.
It's sitting for video games, it's sitting for the phone, it's sitting for homework, it's sitting while you drive from activity to activity. It's so much sitting.
Right,
But
right.
all of those things are helping kids with their academics, and it lays a foundation that lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. And it is so interesting too that this just is how it used to just be. I mean, we didn't
Right.
have to, set goals and
Right.
say, let's make
Right.
it.
You didn't have to have a chart on your refrigerator to keep
Right.
track of it. No, absolutely
Because
not.
we just grew up running through the woods and doing all these things, but times have changed. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of that is technology. I love that you brought up about even the older generation. I was just having a conversation with a friend about my parents and how there's a new program that I'm looking into this very week about boxing if you have Parkinson's and how
Wow.
moving your right and your left at different times, legs and arms, and the different movements helps stimulate and
Wow.
helps Parkinson's. So it's the same concept.
Yeah.
But I just love that. I think
Yeah,
it's
of movement and cross lateral movement. Even that Carla Hannaford, the doctor who wrote Smart Moves, she has another book. It's called The Dominance Factor. Lana, this one's really interesting too. So she talks about how, we know that we're right-handed or left-handed.
Mhm.
And usually we tend to know if we're right brained or left brain dominant. It's like left is the logical, right is the more creative,
Right,
usually. But
right.
she says that we have dominances all the way down our body. Your right or left eye dominant, right or left ear dominant, your legs have a dominance. And so she talks about how when you get stressed out, your dominant side takes over
Mhm.
and your non-dominant side shuts
Goes to
off.
sleep.
It
Yeah.
completely goes to sleep, right? So if I am right and then in our bodies everything is cross lateral. So if you are left brain dominant, that controls your right eye, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yep.
Well, I'm left brain dominant but also left eye dominant. So when
Mhm.
I get stressed, I can't read
Interesting.
because that non-dominant side, which controls my left eye, I don't even know if this is making any sense.
Yes,
If
it
your
totally.
dominances are on the same side, like your brain and your eye, then when you get stressed out, your left eye isn't going to be able to read as it's shut off because
Yeah.
it's controlled by the non-dominant side. And so even stress really affects learning. And I think nature gives all of us a chance to, in a very short period of time, find reprieve, let our blood pressure come down, and that helps with learning and growth and all those sort of things too.
Right, right. And we experience this as adults, even if you're in the business world and you're stuck to your computer. If you are stressed and you shut your laptop and you walk outside and hold a goat or
Yes.
walk outside and take a walk around the block if you're down in the financial district or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, we know these things that, okay,
Right.
I come back. It only took 5 minutes, but for families that are really trying to, change what's going on in their lifestyle, 5 minutes is not enough.
Right.
But
Sure.
we see it. We definitely see it. So
Right.
for those families that are busy, and both parents are working, or single families, or they're in the urban core down there where there's just, we're out here. I know you have started, the homestead lifestyle. We're out here on just a couple of acres. It doesn't take a whole lot. But for some of those that are downtown in the, in the cement jungle down there, what do you
Mhm.
suggest for them?
Well, there's cool things, and I think what's interesting is that wherever you live, there are pros and cons. And so we've lived in a townhome, a few years back, and we had our little kids. We didn't have a yard at all, but we had these two little patios that went off the side, and one of them we had a water table on. But we were within walking distance to a lot of stuff. We were within walking distance to the library. We were within walking distance to an elementary school, so we could walk to the playground. And now we're in the country, and we don't have that. We had neighbors before that we loved. We called us like the Boulevard Crew. I mean, I don't know. We had a whole name. It was a whole
Yes.
thing. And
Yeah.
so there's actually really cool parts to that. And so, my brother lives in Brooklyn, New York, and he's within walking distance to a lot of parks and a lot of things that you can get out and walk to, and you see the trees that line the streets and they change colors, and so there's a lot of that. And so it's a give and take. And then when you're in the country, you have a larger backyard, but there might not be any other kids to play with, and you certainly can't walk anywhere. So, except to your goats, and
Right.
so there
Right.
there aren't those things. And so I just think you look at your own particular situation
Mhm.
and figure out how it works for you. There's families all over the world that are doing 1,000 hours outside, single parent families, they adjust the goal sometimes. I think the point is not necessarily the number, although the number is backed, like I said, by what these occupational therapists are saying, but it's more about the intention, it's more about the celebration, and it's more about the modeling. Like, our kids are going to need tools to combat what's coming at them. And for them, it's more and more. You can go buy a refrigerator that has a television screen in it. I mean, it continues to become just a stronger and stronger force, technology. And so we're giving our kids some tools. Here's a way.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that are talking about, like, there's a book called Digital Minimalism, and this man named Mike Rucker has a book called The Fun Habit that's coming out in January. They're talking about how we have to be very intentional about saving this time, about setting it away. And in some ways, it feels like, oh, I wish we could be more spontaneous. But I think you can be spontaneous within those times that you set aside. Otherwise, the time seems to just go and evaporate. So I think that people find there are different ways to do it. So a double working family, maybe they're going on a walk after dinner. Maybe they're walking part of the way to school. There's this woman named Katie Bowman who has this movement called nutritious movement. She's got a bunch of books, but she says sometimes with her kids, she'll drive part of the way,
Mhm.
park and walk the rest. So
Oh,
even things like that, I'm like, that's a cool idea. So, and then on the weekends, or maybe you take 1 or 2 vacations a year that are camping or that surround cool places where you could hike or get some outdoor experiences. So it's a unique expression of your family, I think, Lana.
yeah.
And that's a special part about it too, that our family of origin, that our growing up experiences should have some uniqueness to them to
Mhm.
make us into the people that we are when we become adults.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So tell me how, because, okay, you're in Michigan, is that right?
Hmm.
And we're here in Kansas City, which is for planting, we're zone 6B, which means
Oh,
basically,
so are we.
yeah, yeah. So we pretty much have the same. We go
Yeah,
from 115 hot in the summer, some days, not all summer, but to 15 below sometimes
right.
when we're out there. And I just experienced that this morning. So it's cold season,
Yes.
pouring down rain. It feels cold enough that it should be ice, but it is like freezing outside. And
Hmm.
I get up this morning, husband's at the fire station. So I'm on my own for all the farm chores. And I'm sitting there in my jammies, fire's going, I'm drinking my coffee. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go out there and do that. Um, but sure enough, soon as I get bundled up and I'm out there, I am in my happy zone and the goats are
Yeah.
being silly. And I mean, I'm doing chores, I'm carrying water buckets and I'm in, chicken manure. So, it's not all glamorous by any means, but it just is like a dose of endorphins.
Yeah.
What do you say, or how do you speak to those that say, okay, we we do 8 hours a day in the summer. We're at the pool and we're playing, and building tree houses and all those things. But come winter, I want to hibernate. Well, how do you
Right.
do that?
Well, I think that, like you said, that's innate in all of us. And I think our brains tend to go toward the cozy and the easy. That's just how we're wired. Michael Easter has a really good book about that called The Comfort Crisis. That's
Mhm.
how we're wired. We're wired to seek comfort because we don't want to utilize all of our resources. In the past, that would have meant that, we're maybe in a lesser spot to survive. So
Right.
our bodies, we know that our bodies are driven for comfort, but
Mhm.
that when we get out of that comfort, then we thrive.
Mhm.
And Linda McGurk, who grew up in Scandinavia, she has a book about it. It's called There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather. And they're saying which is not necessarily true. It's kind of like tongue in cheek, but there is truth to it. You're not going to go outside in a hurricane, obviously, but the thought there is that you just change your clothes. And that is what they do in these other countries, and they get out every day, they change their clothes, and the experience is basically just like what you said. You go out there, you are revitalized, you got that crisp, I mean, there is something about that crisp air that wakes you up, it blasts you in the face, and it changes your mood. And then when you come back inside, the comfort feels even better. You can't have ultimate comfort, I think, if you don't have any bouts of discomfort. You have to have that range of experiences. But Linda talks about in her book, and this is what really changed my mind because I was always like an endure winter person. We were doing it because I knew it was important for the kids, but I was enduring it. Can't wait till May, basically. And then she talked in her book about, well, what do these seasons provide that other seasons don't? And
Mhm.
there is a lot of truth to that. What does winter provide? It provides sledding. I mean, that is one of the funnest things our kids, and they're trudging up the hill in the snow, pulling their sled. That's helping them develop it's called heavy work, their proprioception. They're building the snowman. We make all sorts of things out of ice. We tried to build snow ghosts. That didn't work. But we build these ice lanterns and we have these paths, and they like to crunch the ice and they like to stand on ice and try and move around in their boots like ice skating, and all of these things that you cannot do. And what's been so interesting, Lana, is that for years I was like, why do we live here in Michigan? I want to move to
Heard that before.
Tennessee, right? I want to move down to Arizona. But what started to happen is that some of the people in these southern states, they message and say, I wish I lived where you do.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I thought, well, that has come full circle
Yeah.
because there are really special things about the changes of the seasons. And so you have to figure out what's safe for you. But people are doing cross country skiing, they're doing kick sleds, they're doing all of these neat things that are very unique and they're special and they're memorable. And there's something about morning light,
Mhm.
exposure to morning light, sunlight, full spectrum light that resets all of our body systems. I
Mhm.
think our body systems are on a 25-hour cycle. And so we have to have that daily morning light to get them back on the 24 cycle. There's like over 100 body systems that are dependent on the exposure to morning light, which
Mhm.
is why it's great to have things to care for, whether that's goats or just something outdoors. You need to go shovel, you need to go check your mailbox, you need to check on a neighbor, you have plants outside, whatever that is really helpful for our bodies to get that morning light exposure all even through the winter, even when it's cloudy. There's
Mhm.
so much more. It's called lux. Lux is the word. Lux outdoors than there is even in a sunny room inside. So that motivates us, and we always feel better.
Uh-huh. We do. We do.
Always.
And we know it, but
Hmm.
it's getting the kids to also do
Yeah. And
that.
it's a lot. I mean, it is a lot to get those kids bundled. Oh my goodness. I mean, I remember it would take sometimes 30 minutes. Then we go out for 20.
And we have to go to the
And
bathroom.
yeah, but you know what? That's okay. It's
Right,
just a
right.
season, just like we're talking about the seasons, but those are just a season. Now I've got 4 out of my 5 kids can get all of their gear on, and it's easier now in that way. But it's harder because they also now have sports. So
Yeah.
there's never going to be the perfect time to adventure with your family. There's always going to be hurdles, and that's why we have a goal,
Right.
because you have a goal for things that are hard to do but are important.
Hmm. Absolutely. So tell me when, and I know the answer is going to be different depending on kids' ages and all of that, but tell me what it looks like for you with little ones, with, a little bit older, then to the teenagers. What do those time frames look like as a family?
It's all really special, isn't it? And I
Mhm,
think it's neat to have found an answer. To me, this is the answer to a lot of modern parenting problems, not
mhm,
all of them, but a lot of them. And it's an answer that works really throughout our entire life. It works for the newborn. I remember our son, our oldest, was so into, and this was even before we were intentional about it, but I remember he just loved to look at the trees. And I
mhm.
thought this is like nature's mobile,
It
but
is.
it's not the same thing going around and around. There's a lot more variation. And
Yes.
he really liked that. And so for the newborn, they're really engaged in their surroundings. If you walk with them in a carrier, and there's so many different great kinds of carriers today, with every step that you take, they're having to readjust their gaze, and so
Mhm,
their eyes are learning how to work together. Our eyes work together. We have that dominant eye and the non-dominant, and they work together as a team.
mhm,
So just our vision of 2020, 2040, that's only part of the puzzle. Our
mhm,
kids' eyes have to be able to work well together, and that's what happens when, we're in that, we're walking and we're holding them in every step. So, with little ones, we did a lot of carrying, a lot of stroller. The stroller was always puking over. We buy a big stroller, get the two-person even if you only have one kid, because you need the other side and you need all the hooks because
yeah.
you have
All the
stuff.
snacks, all the
They
water.
all that, yep, they're gonna, if they fall and get muddy, a lot of kids are gonna want to change their clothes. So we would have a lot with us. So there was a lot of hurdles when they were little. I had to do it all. I had to carry it all. I had to load it all in. I had to load it all back out and all of this different stuff. Well, now that they're older,
Mhm.
this is easier physically, but it's harder to find the time.
Right.
So, like I said, there's not a perfect time to adventure, but I have not regretted one of the experiences that we have carved out time for. We went down to Florida. I was speaking at a conference in May, and there's this, it's called like the America's Best Swimming Hole. It's
Mhm.
right over the border as you get into Florida, and it was 15 minutes off the freeway, and we had the conference was starting that day, but
Mhm.
I thought, okay, we've got like 1 hour of leeway time, and
Right.
I just thought, well, one, it's kind of a bummer that we only have 1 hour. I wish we had all day, but we're going to stop anyway. And it's one of our family's most memorable moments. It was a gorgeous swimming hole. There was nobody else there. Everyone changed in the car and jumped in, and we stayed for an hour. And we had wet towels and all sorts of things driving to this conference. And it was a scramble. We we barely got set up in time, but whatever. I mean,
You make
so
memories. I
you
love that.
do,
I
you
love that.
do.
And
So it's,
those kids will remember that,
yeah,
the rest of their life.
yes.
Those are the moments that it probably was a pain to like, oh, we have other things to do.
Yeah,
And
it would have been easier to skip it. It would have been easier. And it's easier to skip all of it, really, because you're dealing with skinned knees and your kids whine. I mean, my kids fuss all the time. They fussed when they were little, but
yeah,
then you would look back at the day and you would think, I'm glad I did it anyway, even though there were hard parts, even though it was a fair amount of work. Somehow you still feel energized and rejuvenated after it's done and during.
right, absolutely. Do you find, I remember times when mine were little and now mine are quite a bit older. But I would just, and we had some acreage here, so they would just run amok. But when we would leave to go on a play date or go to the park or something, I pretty much had my car. I had a pack in the back that was constantly, I had extra water, I had
Yeah.
extra snacks, extra clothes, so that I was just organized. I didn't have to do it every single time. Of course, I'm always bringing an additional bag for whatever it is we're doing.
Right.
I had a safety stash at all times because it's going to happen. I mean, someone's
And
going
that's a
to
good,
answer something.
I think that's a good name for it, a safety stash. Because yeah, you're gonna go home if you don't have enough food with you, if you run out of water. So yeah,
Right.
we would always keep an extra box or two of crackers or something that
Yeah.
was shelf stable. I love a safety stash. That's a great name for it.
A safety stash. So tell me what it looks like for your family as you're transitioning to older kids. Tell me the ages of your kids again.
So our kids are 14 down to 6. So they're 14, 13, 11, 9, and 6. And
Okay.
this is a really fun stage, Lana. Like we
Yeah.
just went and did a river kayak,
Mhm.
and it was for my birthday, and everyone cried about it.
Uh-huh. Aw.
Like no one wanted to be there but me. But it
Right.
was my birthday, and so it was
You
in
have to.
to be fair, my birthday's in October and it's Michigan, so it wasn't super warm. Everyone
Right.
was complaining that their hands were cold. So anyway, live and learn.
Yes.
But we're in this position where we can do more.
Right. Right.
And because our youngest is potty trained and can make it further distances and can sit in a kayak and be pulled behind, we pulled her behind for a lot of it, but some of it she could do. And so we are in that stage of adventuring in a different way, but really juggling a freshman, a high school freshman who has friends and his own ideas of what he wants to do. And so this is what it looks like now, but they're really specializing. Like they're going to go out and shoot hoops at the basketball and play their music really loud. That's complex movement. And
Mhm.
they're dancing out there and that's what they're doing. I think that as long as we invite friends,
Mhm.
then it's a piece of cake to get our kids outside. If there aren't friends, then it's a little bit more like pulling teeth, but
Right.
once we get out there, usually they feel better too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's good for all of us to have those moments of connection amidst sort of like the teenage schedule.
Absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of sports. I don't like the whole push it, push it, push it when they're, 3 years old, but I do like the idea. I mean, my kiddos were all, into a lot of different sports, and it's getting them outside. They're, all through high school. And then all of a sudden, I'm not the bad guy. They have to go to bed at a certain time because the coach said so, not because,
Oh,
and
sure.
so I really liked I'm just a big proponent of sports, especially if they're outdoors and
Mhm.
just getting some fresh air. And then they learn, just like with any of this, that it's not, you have a track meet, you're pole vaulting, and it is literally 30 degrees outside. You better, take extra coat, take your stuff, and they sit
Yeah.
there outside for 9 hours at a meet. And
Wow.
they learn to toughen up. Life isn't all about sitting on a
Yeah.
comfy couch with the phone in your hand. And so I just love that aspect of it
Mhm.
as well. So tell us a little bit about the program and what it like. You have these beautiful printables. So tell
We
us a
do,
little bit about that.
and actually, by the time this goes, we have 3 brand new ones for 2023, and they're so cool. We went this morning and did a photo shoot, so that was part of our outside time. We had this cool old time village near us, and they're incredible. But we have within the community, we do a contest, a design contest. This was our third year doing it. But we have maybe 10 or so options on our website. They're free. You download it. We get ours blown up at Staples for
Oh,
$2. For $2, you can get it bigger on like a blueprint sheet of paper. Up to $10, you can get it huge. People
oh,
hang them on their wall, and the kids color them in. You just color in one square for every hour or circle. There's one that's like a sun rays and there's all these circles that go out. One that looks like a maze. There's one that looks like a mandala design. I don't know if that's even how you say that word, but there's a planet, a solar system. So there's really cool options on there. Those are free to print out at 1000hoursoutside.com/trackers. And there's the designs people, and some people they do a competition. So they'll
uh-huh.
have every one of their family members pick one out and they kind of keep track, and we just loosely keep track. This is
Yeah,
not about like down to the minute. It's not meant to be cumbersome. And also, if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's okay too. It's
right,
really about knowing the benefits of setting down our phones and our screens, what the benefits of simple things outside, reading a book in a hammock. You're getting that full spectrum sunlight, playing your board game at the park instead of playing it at the kitchen table. These things really do matter. Eating your breakfast on the deck. These are really good things walking to school. So,
mhm,
um, but so you color in an hour. Some people in our family, I just keep track of our youngest kid because she's out the least, and the older ones are out the most because they can go by themselves.
right.
So people kind of find how it works for their family. And if you don't like that, we also have an app It's a #1 lifestyle app where it's got a little timer feature. You can put your different family members in if you want. It's got badges that come with it. So we're about celebrating.
Yes.
Let's celebrate the fact that we are setting aside. It's hard. We
Hmm.
are setting aside time for these memories. And so some families, like when they hit the end,
Hmm.
they'll make a cake, they'll make cupcakes, they'll
Oh,
they'll do these, they'll go to the zoo, they'll do these fun little celebration things. And I think that speaks volumes to our kids about how we manage a full life in a technological age.
right, right. And it is so beautiful. So for those of you, if you're not following Jenny, it's thousand hours outside, and you're
Mhm.
on. I follow you on Instagram. Are
Yeah.
you on what other places are you on?
So we're on Facebook, and then we also have a private Facebook group that has 112,000 people in it from around the world, and people are posting really cool ideas, especially like really neat winter ones where they're digging down in the snow and they've made like this like spot that you can go down. They got a fire pit in there. I mean, you see,
I love it.
they're the coolest ideas like these people are coming up with. So that's we're there. And then I have a newsletter like everybody else. We have a website, which is 1000hoursoutside.com. I have a kickoff pack that is also free to download, and it includes hiking prompts. There's 62 hiking prompts. So a hot chocolate hike, or a hot muffin hike, or a flip flops hike, or just fun little things. People cut them out. I'll show you what it looks like. I know it's a video, not video, but they look like this. You could just cut it out
I love
and
it.
you put it on a little popsicle stick, a snack necklace hike. So, do you remember making those snack
Yes,
necklaces?
yes,
I
yeah.
mean, just fun, a costume hike. So, different types of ideas. And then each month, there's a picture book list and ideas for that month that are seasonal, sort of to our zone 6B. But I figure people can just mix and match because the whole thing is free and you
Well,
can just kind of mix and match.
and that's why I just enjoy your platform online, like, social media, because you share some of these things that people are sharing with you as well. And okay, I might have this wrong. Tell me about in your book, was it a competition for pictures? And
Okay,
you had to win?
the
Tell
book
me
is
about that.
neat.
Yeah.
So I got asked to write an activity book with DK Books, and we love DK Books at our house. So I was really excited about the opportunity, and they wanted this comprehensive, give us all sorts of ideas of things that we can do. This is what parents are asking for. Sometimes you just got to call up a friend and go on a hike. That works. But we want to have all these, what can we do outside? What are some different ideas that kids love? And so we like those things too, but I'm not a photographer and we haven't done all of the ideas. And so I put an all call out. They said that I could ask for photos from the 1000 Hours Outside community of kids doing different activities outside. So Lana, I was so nervous because you ask a question like that and then you think, okay, what if nobody sends in
Right, right.
anything and you don't know what's going to happen? But there were over 16,000 photo submissions from
Wow.
around the world. So it actually became a really challenging situation to try and sort through them all. They had a hard time, even on the technological side, figuring out how to even put them in a format so that we could go through them and pick. But we ended up doing it. It was a big process. It was a lengthy process, but it was so neat, Lana, to see what these kids are doing all around the world. So there are some photos of my kids in this book, but the majority of the photos are from our community, and they're phenomenal.
Those are
They're the
beautiful, beautiful.
coolest. The whole book is just filled. It's on the binding, it's on the back, just these stunning photos all the way through that coincide with the different activities. And what I found,
I love it.
and this is what people say, is that this is a book, like I said, a parent would buy. It's called 1000 Hours Outside, Activities to Match Screen Time with Green Time. It comes out December 20th. And it's a book that a parent buys to help guide them through different ideas that they can do with their kids. And there's hundreds of ideas in here. It goes season by season. But the interesting thing is that these type of books are really good to just have laying around because
Mhm.
it reminds kids that life is full and there's all sorts of ideas for them. That's the feedback that I get from families as they say, my kids love leafing through this book because they like to see what the kids are doing. And at certain ages, obviously, they are going to need some help. And certain ages, they're not.
Right.
But just this concept of there's a wide world out there for you to explore, and in simple ways you can have a lot of fun and you can engage with it. That is the message of the book, and so it turned out so
I love it.
phenomenal. DK just does such a bang up job with their design, but there is idea after idea in here, and it is a fun one. And I think that some people are gonna they're in it, they don't even know. There were so many photo submissions, Lana, that we weren't even able to then at the end figure out whose is whose. They're gonna find out on December 20th if they're in it or not. So it's a great book.
That, I mean, that is so extra special that your community can
Hmm.
also be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that is so amazing. I just
Yeah,
love
it's
it. Love it.
fun.
I love it. Okay, so last question for you. Well, I'll try to make it the last question. I could talk to you for like 5 hours.
All day. I know, I feel the same way about you.
So tell me real quick about how I know Facebook, metaverse, all that nonsense. Tell me how you feel about and how can we as parents adjust when the kids are experiencing these things. Like I even read that this weekend, people are going to church through the metaverse on Facebook instead of going to all these things are now virtual instead of
Right.
reality. And there is, are you going to just miss out? There's smells and tastes and human interaction that's so different. So tell me how you feel about that and, how you combat that.
I think it's a really good question because it's going to continue to be relevant. This one is not going away. I read a book called The Singularity is Near. I actually haven't finished it. It's really long. It's by a man named Ray Kurzweil, and he used to design keyboards. I know he's probably done a lot of things, but I had one of his keyboards as a kid, Kurzweil,
Mhm,
and he is this technological he predicts things that are coming, and
mhm,
he's predicted with 85% accuracy all sorts of things since the 80s. The book is very eye-opening about what he thinks is coming. The singularity is near, and then this is about sort of merging humans with machines. That's kind of the premise. Well, he has a book coming out next year. It's called this it's called The Singularity is Nearer.
mhm. Oh,
What?
wow.
What? Okay. So anyway, so it's just been interesting to read that kind of thing. what what has changed, I think, is that society used to be set up in a way that protected childhood, and
Mhm,
it no longer is. It was
mhm,
set up in a way because cartoons stopped at noon on Saturday mornings, and
mhm,
because neighborhood kids were outside playing, and that was the norm. There's all of these parts of society that made it easier, I think,
mhm,
in a whole lot of ways for kids to live the way that kids are supposed to live.
mhm,
But that has changed. And so now the order falls on the shoulders of the parents, and it falls on the shoulders of the educators. And it's hard. But
mhm,
there's also really some joy to it, Lana. It's like, well, you know what? I wouldn't be getting all these amazing experiences myself if not for the fact that I have to take my kids or I have to set up these different things. And so I think to answer your question, one of the most important pieces, and I just talked to this woman who wrote a book called Ready or Not. I
mhm,
actually have it sitting right here because I talked to her this morning. Preparing our kids to thrive in an uncertain and rapidly changing world. This is what's going on. Are our kids ready? And
mhm,
one of the things that she majors on are the social interactions,
mhm,
because she says, okay, our kids are going to have so many colleagues.
mhm,
When we had jobs, you could get a job and stick with it for forever. But
mhm,
now kids are going to be in four different jobs probably within the first decade
mhm,
of graduating college or getting into their 20s, and that their colleagues are constantly changing. There's this revolving door of people, and that their social interaction skills, dealing with disappointment, being able to take risks, all of these different things,
mhm,
these are the skills that they're going to need. And
mhm,
the only way that they can get them is through unstructured time. That's
mhm,
it. They
mhm,
cannot get them in any other way. There are no other options. And so I think that sometimes we are well intentioned but misguided, because all around us are the programs and the tutoring and the fill, and don't let your kid fall behind. But she says we're doubling down on old tactics. Those
mhm,
are not the tactics of what kids are going to need in the future. They
mhm,
actually need less. They need you to do less. They need you to step back. So we always say, with 1,000 hours outside, you can do less and gain more.
Yeah.
That's a message of hope,
Mhm.
right? That we don't have to be filling every second of the day, that when our kids are bored, when they are learning how to enjoy their own presence and learn about themselves, and when they can make friendships and all of these things, that's what's going to help them in the careers that are coming, that we don't even know what they are at this
Mhm.
point.
Right.
They're going to have to be lifelong learners who can adjust to new skill sets and be optimistic and ready for a challenge and have grit and resilience. And those are the types of things that we get through simple play experiences that are not structured by adults.
Mhm. So important. And to me, that differentiating from, are they just going to sit there and consume, are they going to scroll, even if
Right.
like in the metaverse they might be like scrolling and playing like they're a person, but it's basically consuming content, or are you going
Yeah.
to get outside and create and dream and
Yeah.
make this little leaf into a boat and it's in a puddle, or there's
Hmm.
just so much creation that
Yes.
their brains are just firing in a different way than if they're sitting on your couch scrolling through your phone. So I just thank you so much for your message that you're putting out. I cannot wait. Okay, so I said I ordered an extra book. I can't wait to get it in my hands before I
Oh,
give it away as a
it's a
gift.
beautiful book. Thank you.
Because it's just, I want my grandbaby to be raised like this. So my kids are raised like this.
Hmm.
And it was a norm back then. And
Right.
now, things are different. When my kiddos started hitting high school, and they had technology before that, but it wasn't like a constant phone in your hand every
Yeah.
minute. And I feel for the younger parents these days, because we just
Yes.
had it easier to raise
Yes.
kids. They just would run about and have fun and were creative, and that was just how things were. And now
Hmm.
you have to fight for it, and you are giving
Yeah.
them tools to make it easier for them to have this lifestyle. So I thank you so much for your message and you putting this out into the world. So one last time, you can get your book Thousand Hours Outside on Amazon. Where else? Anywhere that
It's
it's
anywhere, and it's global. So I have a couple books that we self-published, but this is the first actual published book with DK Books. And our self-published books have only been available in the States just because we're shipping them out. But this one is available around the world. I've been told that Barnes and Noble will carry one copy.
there you go. I love it.
Like, I went in thinking like, oh, maybe they're gonna have an end cap. And they're like, no, we're gonna have one copy. So yeah, I think it should be available most places, but it's neat that it will be around the world.
Yeah, I love it. And that comes out on the 20th.
Yeah,
So
right before the holidays.
get it before Christmas. So that would
Hmm.
just be a wonderful gift for any family that is wanting to go down this path. So I
Yeah,
love what you're doing. I've enjoyed chatting with you. If y'all are not
same.
following her on social media, you get a lot of this goodness
No
and
goats, no
yeah,
goats.
no
Well, you
good.
know what? I do have one really cute goat picture. I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
But that I have one, only one goat picture, but
I,
there are
yeah.
some other things.
Yes. Well, and yeah, goats are the reason I go outside. So it's easy for me. I don't have to force it. I don't even want to come back in if you have goats. But I love what you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm excited for you. So have a great
Oh, thank
holiday
you.
season.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Bye.
And to all your listeners, thank you. And hopefully they've read your book too, because I really enjoyed it. And we had fun talking just a few months ago about your book that came. We have books that came out the same year. What a special
Oh,
thing.
it's so fun, and they're very
Hmm.
similar in
Yeah,
message,
yeah,
written differently, but
yeah.
I love what you're doing, and it's so, so important to bring up this next generation. So,
Thank
all right.
you.
Well, thank you, Ginny. I sure appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.